us as black women, Paige reminds me a lot of you. Like, you say you're not really about me. And she knows how her privilege has gotten her to that point. And also, like, she's good at basketball, obviously. But, like, she understands her privilege and, like, pushes her over the top, in a sense. It reminds me a lot of you. And I mean, that's a compliment.
Is that a compliment?
A'ja Wilson, a dominant force in basketball, is no stranger to the spotlight. But in this recent incident, her name isn't being lit up on scoreboards or celebrated for her on-court prowess. Instead, she's at the center of a heated conversation that quickly spun out of control. Comments she made about Caitlin Clark, one of college basketball's rising stars, ignited a firestorm. Wilson, known for her presence and leadership, has often used her platform to speak her mind. But this time, her words seemed to push a button in the sports community, leading to a chorus of criticism, with many accusing her of racism. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. At the heart of the controversy are the remarks Wilson made about Clark, comments that some interpreted as laced with racial undertones. Clark, an incredibly talented white player, is revered for her skills and dominance, much like Wilson in her early days. The comparison alone could have set the stage for tension. Still, it was Wilson's language, tone, and the perceived framing of Clark that sparked accusations of racism. The incident quickly grew legs as the media, fans, and fellow athletes weighed in, dissecting every syllable and insinuation. For Wilson, this backlash was unexpected. She's always been a vocal advocate for equality, pushing for better representation and respect for women in sports. Her persona has been built on breaking barriers, being both a role model and a trailblazer. However, it appears that her comments about Clark inadvertently touched a nerve, bringing issues of race to the forefront of a discussion that should have been about basketball excellence. The layers to this story aren't just about what was said, but how the context of race in sports is ever present, whether we choose to acknowledge it or not. Caitlin Clark, for her part, has been a phenomenon in the basketball world. She's got the kind of game that brings people out of their seats, dazzling fans with her shooting range and court vision. There's no denying her talent, but in a world where race is a factor that often looms over everything, comparisons between black and white athletes, particularly women, can sometimes carry unintended baggage. Wilson's comments, whether intended to be critical or not, seem to get caught up in that broader narrative. The reaction to Wilson's words was swift and fierce. Social media, always eager to grab hold of a controversy, had a field day. Wilson's supporters defended her, pointing to her track record as a staunch advocate for racial equality. But there was no escaping the flood of criticism. Accusations of double standards were thrown around, with some suggesting that Wilson's remarks would never have been scrutinized so harshly had she been a white player critiquing a black one. These layers of race, privilege, and representation became entangled in what was supposed to be a discussion about basketball. In many ways, the uproar over Wilson's comments reveals a larger issue in sports: the constant pressure on athletes, especially black women, to say the right things. The reality is that when athletes like Wilson speak out, their words carry weight, not just because of who they are, but because of what they represent. Wilson has always understood this to some degree, but even someone as seasoned as her can find herself in hot water, caught between her personal thoughts and the public's interpretation of them. What's particularly striking in this situation is how quickly the conversation escalated. The basketball world, always full of strong opinions, seemed to latch onto the racial aspect of Wilson's remarks more than the basketball itself. It's almost as if the game became secondary. The focus shifted from analyzing Clark's skills or Wilson's perspective on her playing style to dissecting the racial dynamics at play. This is a reminder that no matter how far we think we come, race is still a powerful force in how we view and interpret sports, especially when it involves athletes of different races. One of the more intriguing aspects of this controversy is how both Wilson and Clark handled the situation in the immediate aftermath. Wilson, known for her charisma and humor, didn't shrink from the criticism, but she also didn't jump into the fray with an immediate defense or clarification. Her usual laid-back style seemed to leave room for interpretation. Whether intentional or not, Wilson's initial silence only fueled the fire, with some taking it as an admission of guilt and others seeing it as a sign of her confidence in her words. Clark, on the other hand, seemed to stay focused on basketball. If she was hurt or bothered by Wilson's comments, she didn't show it. In many ways, this only added another layer to the narrative. Clark has long been praised for her poise and maturity on the court, and in this instance, she seemed to carry that same level-headedness off the court. Her ability to brush off the drama and stay focused on her game became part of the conversation, contrasting her demeanor with the uproar surrounding Wilson's comments. This whole situation highlights the double-edged sword of being a vocal athlete today. On one hand, players like Wilson have an incredible platform to address issues they care about. But on the other hand, the scrutiny they face is magnified. Every word, every comment is analyzed and often twisted by those looking to stoke controversy. And when race is involved, the stakes are even higher. The story becomes bigger than the players themselves, feeding into broader social and cultural conversations about privilege, representation, and who gets to critique whom. For A'ja Wilson, this is likely not the end of the story. Her career is still on the rise, and she's earned enough respect in the basketball world to bounce back from this moment. But this controversy serves as a reminder that being an athlete today is about more than just performance on the court. Players like Wilson are expected to have a voice, but they also face the challenge of navigating a world where those voices are constantly under scrutiny. The media attention surrounding Wilson and Clark will eventually fade, as these stories often do. But the impact of this incident will linger. It will likely change how Wilson approaches her public comments in the future, and it might even alter how other athletes, particularly Black women, navigate the tricky waters of speaking their truth in a world that often wants them to remain silent unless they're playing the game. It's a heavy burden, but one that athletes like Wilson seem prepared to carry. As for Caitlin Clark, her career trajectory seems only to be going up. If anything, this controversy has only increased her profile. She's already one of the brightest stars in college basketball, and now with her name attached to this conversation, she's become even more of a household name. Clark, though, seems more interested in letting her game do the talking. And maybe that's part of what makes her so compelling. She doesn't seem fazed by the noise around her. In the grand scheme of things, this incident is a small moment in both players' careers, but it's one that underscores how complex the world of sports can be, especially when issues of race and gender are involved. Athletes like Wilson and Clark, while competitors on the court, are also representatives of something much larger than themselves. They carry the weight of expectations from fans, the media, and even each other. In the end, what started as a comment about basketball turned into something much bigger. A'ja Wilson likely didn't expect her words to explode into a national conversation about race and privilege. But as one of the most recognizable figures in women's basketball, it's a responsibility that she carries, whether she wants it or not. And for Caitlin Clark, this moment will likely be just one of many as she continues her rise to the top. Both women in their own ways are defining what it means to be a superstar in today's sports world, where the game itself is often just the beginning of the conversation. For now, though, the dust will settle, and the focus will shift back to what both of these incredible athletes do best: play basketball. But the echoes of this controversy will remain, serving as a reminder that in today's world, sports and society are forever intertwined. And for A'ja Wilson and Caitlin Clark, their legacies will be shaped not just by what they do on the court, but by how they navigate the pressures and expectations that come with being icons in their respective fields. It's a heavy load, but if there's anything we know about these two, it's that they can handle it. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.